Can you hear us?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's gone.
Yes. This is what?
Thank you so much. Great time. Yes. How are you?
Good, how are you?
This.
I just noticed that. Hey, Mark, I see that you're trying to talk with me, so I'm just trying to figure out what's going on.
Oh.
Okay, now I see Mark was trying to.
Yeah, I'm on here. Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. Now we see it. Hear you.
No, I was going to. They had lots of extra things. We just show up. I work for Marks. Artists and art, they're like the only ones who got the message. It was the weirdest thing. They had the island built with the sheet. Partially, right? I was to show the materials and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so people go just to the center. It was amazing. Access.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like. All the team function.
Thanks. Maybe not know what it's about.
Yes. Over, yes.
Only the. It's hard to go. Oh, that's fun. It's good. Yeah. We're not giving anything. We reached out to each year's foundation contact because each of them asking if they're looking for volunteers. They can only use volunteers from 10 to 2 during the week.
Oh, okay.
Right, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. But I tried, so I want to let you know that I tried.
You gonna put the cost on the picture? Or-
So,
Yeah, he was.
May have made the same mistake I made.
Well, we are-
Took a long way. I sent a message.
So I messaged, because Alexandria, I think was the one who sent out the meetings, I was county vendor saying like, oh.
Okay.
I didn't. I guess I just didn't make it. I let her know, and she said, yeah, said that.
Chairs and I'm here. The co-chairs, co-chairs.
Thanks.
Alex.
Alzheimer's coming.
Alex.
Yeah, they both work as much like each other. Okay. Excellent. Yeah. There it is. Very good. I see it.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Especially because they're good swap over.
I think you should. Yes, I did. Hi, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Master Plan Advisory Group meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have a quorum. I don't know what it means when we say verify meeting properly noted.
It was posted 48 hours.
All right, fine. So Alexander was going to be first on the agenda, but just to give an overview. Tonight, we've got 3 or 4 key topics that we wanted to discuss. One, Alexandra is going to go through and discuss the output so far of her work group. It took a look at a lot of the historical data that's been done since 2010 relating to a master plan. She's got a summary of that along with an overview of our facilities and kind of our footprint. So that's the first thing we'll do. Second thing we'll do is everybody through a brief outline of the February 20th, the next community meeting that we have, and what the topics should look like. And so the purpose of that discussion should be for anybody sitting around the table here, if they think there's any topics that should be added or deleted, so that the team will spend the next 3 weeks working on that. There's also some discussion about delaying that meeting. If anybody wants to talk about that, they can, but that's right now the meeting scheduled today, which I would like to point out in advance is 106 days when we had our very first meeting back in November. So I know there was some talk about delaying further. 106 is number to keep in mind. And then the last thing we'll do is just talk about the project plan that we discussed at the last meeting. I've updated it. There are 3 or 4 key activities on that project plan that we don't have owners. We have teams. We need to assign an owner at this meeting for a couple of those. So with that, unless there's any other questions, I'm going to turn it over to Alexandra to lead us through the update from her team.
in some of the PowerPoint slides that I have, or I allocated like 30 minutes for us to talk about what you just went over. Giving us 30 minutes to talk about, the understanding of the prior studies, surveys, and of existing conditions. Giving us a little more time to talk about the community meeting itself. I really only heard back from Krista and Joe. So one of these things that you talked about, like the project plan and assigning teams or leaders, I think the community meeting is a really big next push. And so before we have that 45-minute discussion, I think we can establish that team. And then I did hopefully allow like at least 15 minutes for public comments. I know that there's been some postings where it was said there would be no public comments. And I know sometimes we've run over, or we've talked a lot, but I think we could really try our best to allow for some of that time. There's a lot of people who might have, an interest in and saying something about what they've heard tonight. So if time allows, I would like to show that we really try to.
Let's see how. Let's
At the end.
table that until we get finished with you.
Are you talking about the February 20th?
The community meeting, yeah.
No, she's talking about.
Are you talking about?
Tonight, yes, to give some, and it just general comments. It doesn't have to be like, I want. I think we should allow, if time allows, for public comments in general. This is
So we go.
open.
Yeah,
So there you go. Let's just go. Let's get to the topics. We'll circle back.
Just to review, again, we've reviewed this before, but it seems like sometimes people may not have participated or forget some of the things that we've gone over. So again, we established the very first meeting that there was going to be 2 working groups. One of which was the review committee, the other was the research committee. And you can read there kind of the objectives and work that we were going to attribute to those committee groups. We did that in part because we didn't have a chair or co-chair. So we said, all right, well, we can have a couple people lead these smaller groups, come up with some sort of direction, and then take those next steps. So in terms of time frame, timeline, that's how we've worked these last couple of months. Good. Oh, well, let me skip that. All right. So review working committee, Alec, did you want to just kind of go over what
Sure.
we've done, your group has done?
Yeah, so we dove in quick, right? We had a couple different sessions. We also had a community tour, existing assets, current condition. Our clay that we're working with, as we understand, but we're going to take our recommendations. At the same time, we also looked at all of the work that had been done previously, not from a survey perspective, which Alexander will talk about research, but in regards to what the master plan might have suggested years prior. So we had a couple sessions there. We looked at breaking things up and how we were going to start to formulate our overall deliverable at the end. Certainly, we're still distance away from that, but we put some guidelines in place to study that from home and then more investment strategy. One thing that we did note was that there is a lot of maintenance that needs to take place in town, and that should not be part of our core objective. So we'll make recommendations back to Pro, things we've noticed and seen. I think we've done that a little bit, mostly on that tool that we had. We provided that feedback. We also need to smart our investments on reserve studies in the sense that we don't want to spend money on an asset that may be up for reserve improvement when we've got greater thoughts and ideas to do. There's much that up for rematch. So we've done some of that, and then we at this point are ready to merge into some survey information studies.
think the next slide touches on some of the ideas of how, what these opportunities.
Yeah, so this is very raw, very early, very uninformed. Basically from our conversations and our discussions and our tour, it was how do we start to look at what a deliverable could look like when we're done. And it has to be inclusive of the entire town, six and all categories that our community is interested in. So this I put together and we can talk about it at a later time. I think it's the vision that I had seen and we had discussed to say, okay, here's what it would look like. And then as you break into each one of these boxes, then you would be able to dive into scope, details, specification, why would we invest in something like that, dollars, cash flow, schedule. So that's the start, and there's a lot more input required.
I'm sorry, the screen is so small. There are a couple of extra copies of the PowerPoint. I'll try to speak up a little bit more too. And town hall, we have our little microphones.
Can't see that.
I think what's important about the map, you'll see this really draft of map and other slides is the distribution of those improvements as well. So we are, as we talk about these improvements, we also understand how they're, where those improvements happen. So each village can feel like they're being touched at some level along the way. So it's not just one village or two villages that get all the improvements. I think it's also important to take into account.
And to be clear, this isn't the plan that we're proposing at all. This is more just the things that we identified. This is, looking at what's there, what's possible. There's this isn't, as you are all reading this is not the plan. So just be very clear that this is not the plan. This is the result of our research and our review and the things that we've seen as we went and looked at all of these different amenities that we already have and the opportunities there.
And a lot of these improvements from prior studies, this isn't like, anything innovative, that, we've come up and no one else had thought of this before. All these other studies and surveys have definitely captured all of this at some point in time before. And this, one of the things that we've been discussing from the get-go is that what makes this group hopefully different is that we're not starting from scratch. We understand that there's been several opportunities for input, and we want to be able to capture that, informed by current conditions, current situations, but have something in place that you can actually move forward. And part of that obviously is establishing some recommendations for how to make a standard committee for a master plan. But also the way we break down projects would be in a way that's manageable to get started right away.
Yeah, I think it's important. One of our goals we're both talking about is we can't present something without a plan to carry it out. So what is that sustainable group that lives on after us that can monitor, track, measure, the progress of what's been.
What you all are seeing is the output of the last 90 days of research and review of what we already have. What research and work has already been done. Now that we've had all this and time to digest it, now it's time to understand this is where that community meetings when we got in, we'll start getting the feedback. But we don't want to ask you the same questions that's been asked 5 times because that's what they do. So we want to make sure that we're being planful and thoughtful on the questions that we're asking. And to do that, we had to do a lot of digesting of what was already there. So that's what we're moving into the next phase now. We've digested the information, and now we're going to start understanding what are the needs that we still haven't met from a community feedback perspective, and then to start building a plan. So just as you walk out, we want to make sure
There's no plan.
it's not the plan. You're still
Just one other comment. On the opportunities chart. Just at some point, maybe we differentiate some of these are refurbishing and reimaging.
Yeah.
First, what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
Okay, so because, pickleball would be brand new, basketball, I don't know if you consider that a big deal, but because they're different animals a little bit.
Yeah.
And one line that's, you could say it's new item, that's not on your community center or whatever. So I think this is a great chart, it's a great way to look at it. You should just be able to differentiate. If we do that.
Great job.
And Krista, I think you actually summarized this slide that's very wordy up there, so we can move right along.
Oh, wait.
Oh, okay. So these are the documents that we reviewed, that were available to us to do so. And part of that review encompassed not only their recommendations, but also, what kind of outreach was performed, what was the result of those outreach efforts, and input from the community. What has been prior recommendations to the board to move forward on. And so that is the little synopsis of those documents. It's important to keep in mind the property ownership. So when we talk about, amenities that are desired or by the residents, we're part of the CROA entity, and it's hard to see, and it's even hard to see in the printout. But only the little yellow dots or rectangles on that map is CROA. So there are certain amenities that may or may not be able to accommodate in that space. So that's what the studies have talked about. What is something innovative that can happen here? Partnerships, how do we partner? How do we trade off parcels of these other entities? But, this is kind of like that umbrella that any questions of surveys or desires for amenities that have to kind of fall into the understanding.
I think what we talked is we want to be thoughtless in how we look, not constrained by what's under one umbrella.
Yeah.
Because the constituents of many of these, all of these entities are the same, and that's us.
One
Yeah,
thing I can add, this I think is from March of 23. And so we really should get, if we're gonna put this in, gotta get it updated.
Sure.
CCD. And then,
This is the one that is available.
right,
So,
that's from.
It's from the county,
so yes, if this is the opportunity for sure, if there are updates to be made.
Yeah.
And any of this information for it to be noted, so we can get updated.
Yeah, we'll just need to update the village. Compared to pick other parcels.
How'd you know that's what it is?
Yeah.
Shows pro with one little dot.
One other thing on there, the documents that were reviewed, we did have visibility to some national input.
Yes.
Yes.
That just gave reference of amenity distributions of communities of large size or
Yeah.
relevant.
And it's in a few slides. as well.
Yeah.
So this is again, just kind of laying what the ground looks like. And if these numbers are off, this is a work in progress and draft. It's not the final product. So, it's just something to highlight where the PROA acreage is, and the most, ability to work within right away, right? There's no partnerships, nothing else is required in that way. If we wanted to do something. And in quotes, but Celebration Village and Artisan Park are two largest villages in terms of acreage for amenity spaces, followed by South Village. Right now, why I highlighted this, I should have brought my, I did bring my. Do south. East Village, yes, 19.97%, but South Village, I highlighted it, for a reason, and I wanted to make a note.
Could it be, was it still there?
I'll have to look at my notes. So we also we were, given a portion of a national Recreation and Parks Association data and standards, by, an entity that was looking at celebration as one of their benchmarks for creating another community. So they did, the analysis, if you will, pull that information together. So these next couple of slides are summaries of that. Again, total units, population, this is the source, but this could differ from census data, the latest and greatest. And by the final, our final report, we'll just make sure to adjust where needed for these, but, I think that population. So,
And it's in data before. This is pre-island foundation.
yes,
So it's.
yes, all is yeah. So we'll make adjustments for Island Village, obviously then, but you can see the summary there. Based on the national standards, what you see highlighted in yellow are where we are way above the national standard in terms of these amenities. And then those that are outlined in red are the ones that, under this size of the community, they're larger communities that you can look under, but under roughly 12,000 population, you can see the 2 outdoor facilities where we lack, based on national. Again, just as another data point to overlap onto some of those priority and citizen input that surveys, along with other recommendations from other communities. So data is a nice foundation to overlap and overlay on these.
I just want to, on the tennis courts, you have 8 delivered.
This is good. I mean, so they have us at 8 and we only have 5. We're still above the 3.7. So to me, when I am reading this, questions, there are a lot of questions that come up. So what does that mean? Like, do we, are there opportunities to repurpose some things, to make our use of them more efficient? Do we partner with other entities that have these spaces? Because on the next slide, you'll see indoor facilities, there's what they count for as recreation centers or GEM may or may not be accurate. What are they counting towards a community center? It wasn't explained. So, but taking a step back, you could say, okay, well, if they're counting some of these gym spaces like the K-8 or the high school as opportunities for partnerships, other entities use, can residents also use, just throwing it out there in terms of questions, not, that these will be recommendations, but
What are these numbers?
it means, what is it? The number, the first one means what the amount of that specific amenity
But we have 5 tennis sports.
population.
So,
There was a study done. So just compare that. Yeah, so it just said, we have looked at.
That's good to make a little, yeah.
so Joe, one of the first topics we said,
Yep.
this was to make sure that we had, right, this is working. Right, so I don't know if it's worth a pause here, is that have some dialogue or any comments? Either.
I think the second number is they've already divided the 11,000. So like if you look at the one where it's anywhere where it's 1/11,000, but like one where it says 11, it's out of 1,000. So I think they've already divided that number there. So it's, which means there's, if you look at the multi-purpose ones where it says 11,000, means there's one multi-purpose field for 1,100 people. There are 11 total in this location. That's the interpretation of the numbers. That helps.
Yes.
I just want to make sure everybody.
No, that's a good.
And again, this is just, one red, I mean, it also says, we don't have many ice skating rinks compared to. So it's just, as we do the survey for the community, to get their feedback. And it says hypothetically, we need more basketball courts.
Yeah.
Okay, and you look and say, oh, gee, we have less basketball courts. Now you have 2 data points that would say, people say, gee, we have whatever. It's just what will help us after we get back to survey results, just to have another data point that says, gee, the community wants it, and statistics would say we're right. So I think that's all it is. We can check with that integrity. I went through the report, fair amount of detail, and I only found the tennis courts, which I think those were provided by CBD. Okay, and I think they counted the high school expense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that now.
At Georgetown.
So that's what I'm saying, some of this
So it's
is looking at the community at large, whether or not ROA owns it or who owns it, it's just like your community has access to in some way or another.
Well, that's what we talked about last time, is what does access really mean? I think
Yeah.
for some of the apartment complexes, the access means out, the access doesn't. Right, so where does that? If I'm not mistaken, I think apartment complex can use our amenities, but you cannot use an apartment complex.
Well, that would go to Georgetown also.
Right, so I think that's a nice.
And Artisan Park obviously is gonna be a big contributor to a lot of,
So while it might exist, is it accessible to all?
It's okay to close it. Change that access to.
Yeah. Well, so that can be part of our plan, is to say, all right, well, we're gonna go negotiate, there's no investment.
Yeah.
But it's just understanding that, right?
Yeah.
Like when someone comes from the outside and they're looking at our community, they're not going into the weeds of, it's only for this, it's only for that, and only, they're saying you have quote unquote access to all of these amenities, whatever the number is, or whatever the amenity is. So. Or swimming and swimming pools. Or swimming and swimming pools. Yeah. Swimming and swimming pools.
Yes.
And, I think where I haven't seen captured anywhere is actually that usage of any given amenity.
Yeah.
How are we tracking how well it's being used? Because if we need to think about innovative strategy of, say, repurposing or, augmenting or reducing footprint of something to give way for something else that's a higher priority. Another data point that we don't have, which is really great, is how often is it used?
We can do key cards.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, we've got technology there.
Right, I mean, for tennis courts,
Yeah, if it's.
Downtown tennis courts.
That's like the
Yeah.
pools and the gyms, the dog park, then yes, we can do a key card.
Yes.
Right, but when you're talking about the playgrounds or the tennis courts or the basketball court, those aren't.
So we'll get with you.
Like,
But Joe, do you think we can ask that now? Can we?
Yes.
So
it's not, yeah, and then it's swimming pools, it's tennis, it's a dog park.
And then in addition to that, can we also get reservations through Parks and Rec, if anything that is required for reservation? Because that's the other way to get data.
yeah, we can do resident versus non-resident and partner program reservations, you can compare all three.
Okay.
And then
So
for the tennis courts specifically, those have been a hot topic. So those have been audited in terms of usage, especially in the morning hours, so I can get some audits.
And that's the downtown tennis courts.
Those are the only.
So we have visible.
And just while you're getting data for us, I think related, so, this one, so I'm just trying, where they would write down for the father doing the dance. All those reservations for the
Special events.
special
So
events.
so special events, locations, some of them are pulled in the same spot every year, others move around.
Okay, but we were somewhere on the tour and somebody said there are 80 events a year.
Have the spreadsheet of the attendance.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, let's see, your budget spreadsheet outlines the major events. But I can have the lifestyle and the Parks and Rec team supply you their list of events that includes the smaller paper play events that are budgeted as a one lump sum.
Thank you.
You also have the care from special events that's right here.
Yeah.
That goes will be.
Okay, let's do this, just get the list.
That's going down.
Right, and we knew that, Victoria said that, we had names and shit.
Okay,
And a lot of those events from that spreadsheet that I saw the attendance, the greatest is the outdoor events like the cups and
Yeah.
the pints or whatever. They don't necessarily require a physical structure. So that's another data point definitely to keep in mind in terms of programmatic needs and how to support those programs.
We may have an attendance for like helps and pubs. We have that attendance, is that just the CROA attendance or is that, so that's everybody, so I think it'd be worthwhile noting which events are not, or the numbers include the general, public, just CROA.
Yeah, so we'll split it up into CCS events, which are the ones that include the general public, and the PROA events, which are resident ID and guests.
Record.
The next series of little sketch slides are just breaking these things out visually, and I know it's really small. But just so you can see the sprinkling of these different things, so parks, so really, just open space, not programmed open space, if you will, are the little green dots that you see. And again, I don't have Iron Village, Jim, so I'll have to do a little drive over to populate those couple of squares there. Yes, this is where I took them. Yeah.
Because this doesn't look like on. I mean, it's really was.
Yeah, in the spreadsheet, I have all those parks listed with the acreage. Yeah, and it's really small. So this is from an aerial and I'm filling it in. So,
Like I can spend it, you have the little ones in like Arson Park and Tapestry and Mosaic. They're
Yeah.
really small.
they're really not small. But I did take it from that sheet to at least classify them as, are they community park versus a neighborhood park. I even added in the spreadsheet that I'm working off of trails. So when you add up all those miles, that's an amenity in itself, is to recognize the trail system that we have. The next slide just shows amenities in terms of structure and where they're sprinkled. Again, the schools are there. Some of the clubhouses that we may not have access to currently, but they are part of the community in terms of the apartments. So you can just see how the distribution is. Celebration being a new urbanist community is really all about that pedestrian shed of, a quarter mile. What can you access in, a quarter mile, half mile, and then on your bike for a mile. So as the phases were being built, you can see how they were really kind of self-contained units. So each village has almost every part, not all of them, but almost. And then the next one has that shed, that mile shed. It's not very visible. I apologize. I was doing this one with my son because he thought it was fun to do like the baseball fields, the soccer fields. Again, in the report or something final, you'll get a better resolution, but I had to entertain them some.
it's not gonna be nice.
It is my handwriting, so I should not admit to that. No, but he wrote playground. All right. So we've talked a lot about a distribution of the amenities per village. This is how the 2019 survey distribution in terms of residency, like where the village with what respondents where they lived. Celebration Village having the highest response rate, but Spring Lake and West Village for their size in terms of like households actually had a really strong showing.
So what, yeah, that's just what we can't tell from here that we want to look at, and after we get the survey results in. If I'm reading this right, with only 21% of results were from main village. Now, if 21% of the homes are here, that's perfect.
Yeah, it is. You'll see on the next slide.
Okay, so it's got a quote. Okay, so
Yep.
it's 20,
Yep.
21 versus 21.
So it's a pretty good correlation. That's why I was saying Spring Lake and West Village had a really high, and maybe that's just where someone identifies with, but there's no hard
Okay,
boundary, so there's discrepancy there, but
so I guess put differently, when we're done with getting the survey results in, we would love to see a split like the major housing
With updated out.
with updated.
with Island Village.
Yeah, because the concern is that the entire. He was gonna say it, but,
No, I wasn't.
but you want to see the it may be high, but you just want to make sure that everybody from every part of the celebration is
Yeah.
participating.
Yeah, and the demographics in terms of geography, it's pretty close. I think in terms of maybe age or how long they've been in celebration, we could also refine and take a look at the opportunity for our survey to be more focused and understand who has been left out and who could we get their feedback.
And it will be interesting and likely discussion, right? Because after we get back to results, the problem is if you live in a village, it's only got 5% of the population, should we be getting more than 5% of drugs? And you may say yes, because historically they haven't. I think let's get the data, but I can see that would be
Which of the data?
rich with data.
Also depends on the fee. Right, if you're 5% of the community, but you have 20% of the acreage, it's all gonna be a balance.
Yeah, and again, for the people behind me, I apologize, but when you saw that chart with the yellow little dots, those yellow dots look small and they must, you look at the yellow space. Say, for instance, communities. Okay, well, community center, it's got square foot, 7,000, 8,000. And if Mark was here to explain to me, we then also have this parking spaces. It's almost this big. We don't have a lot of places. So that gets a little more complicated because CBD does have these. It's not our space. There's it's just pieces of the puzzle. Simple.
Oh, yeah, no, we can, so that's the housing units, you see that distribution there. I highlighted the ones that coincide with either items that might have been identified under the most, this was the 2019 prioritization list. In its raw form, so you could see what was ranked by for immediate, short-term, medium, and long-term, how many answered. The one item that I think is an outlier, and I don't believe belongs on this list, is parking. The other ones are a version of a multi function field, way or another, a bocce court, croquet, shuffleboard. I think we need to think of them, a little more carefully. I believe we have more than enough, but based on those national standards of a multi-use court, how well are these bocce courts? We don't have the croquet courts or shuffleboards, but just, I caveat that I highlighted just to draw conversation and attention to some of these priorities. The survey last time in 2019, it wasn't open-ended. It was there was this already list that was generated and you voted on that list. So I think that's another moment of pause. So just to put that out there. And I think that's all I have for now.
That's very good, thank you. So what I recommend we do is talk next, really for us. The meeting 3 weeks from today, unless after this discussion, change it, make it sooner than later, is what we would plan on covering at the next meeting. We would hope to get significant community input. And so it's on your, I didn't bother you, but kind of copy of it behind the agenda for those of you sitting at the table. So there were 7 topics that we thought would be helpful for the community to see. And for us to see, right? Because some of you around the table, including myself, have not seen. But just very clearly, just read, say, what are the objectives of this group? What are we trying to accomplish? Right? This page right here. It's the one that's up on the screen. It's labeled presentation draft outline.
Right.
Version 2.
Do you want us to, oh yeah. Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so what are the objectives, right? Because I'm not sure if everybody sat down right now and has to write down 3 things that we need to have on the exact same. So I think we just need to, we know what our approach has been to get there. What are the objectives? And obviously, one objective is for us to publish a comprehensive document at the end, right? What does that document look like? And I'm talking about that today. So what are our objectives? 2, just as a reminder for people to know who's on the committee, because people behind me probably don't know necessarily who all it is, and who are from the community groups and who are the non-community members who were just solely here because they were nominated to be on the core master plan. So there's 11 of us, I believe, 7 plus 4. And so I think it's just important so everybody can see it's there. Then the next point is very important. What are the key dates? What are the key dates that we're working for? If you don't have the key dates, you don't know if we're ahead of schedule or behind schedule. And so the first listed there is 3 weeks from today, the community input meeting. The next topic we want to talk about is the survey. The survey right now, and I know the date's moving around, but it's middle of March, we would send the survey out. We'll see a little later based upon what the team comes up with as a result of their work. The next is after we get back those survey results at the end of March, then, over the next 6 weeks or so, analyzing that data, sitting in meetings, reaching out to the community again, perhaps say, okay, how do we prioritize it? Because if you remember the last chart that Alexandra pitched, 7 or 8 new things you could possibly add if you did everything, right? Community center, pickleball, basketball, only 7. So then once we look at budgets and timeline and available space, we could start to prioritize and community input, start to prioritize, that. And that's an iterative process because people have different priorities and they have different backgrounds. The next thing that I would say is part of that, and it's once that position is complete, is that the final master plan, before it's published, it's reviewed again with the community in early June, and then end of June. It's published. I know last time there was a conversation about how these dates are about, and they weren't here or anywhere between 30 and 45 days later than was originally committed. And if we continue to make good progress, we can move the dates in. But given where we are today, I think we'll move things. But anyway, key point there is not the exact dates, but that it's, we've got key activities with key dates that are going to be due over the next 5 or 6 months. The next point, so people could understand it, is to take what time is done, boil it down to 3 or 4 charts, just talk about the topography of celebration, how many residents do we have, what are the facilities that are out there, so that people could see that. Then tied to that is all the historical work that's been done that we just saw. We would present that. And then the next topic is how do we ensure that we get in this entire process proper community feedback, right? We know we have the old feedback already, right? We know we get feedback from the people at the table. We know we're going to get feedback based upon where we are at the time right now. Today's meeting, we may get some feedback. At the February 20th meeting, we get feedback. We get the survey feedback, right? We have another. So there's many different ways, but we have to ensure. One of the things we wanted to make sure that when we're done with this, we can say this is what the community wants. Not that we do wants, but on average, this is what the majority of the communities want. So that we go back to Carl and say this is against 7 people. This is what 700 people want to represent the community, or hopefully even more. So throughout this process, we just need to ensure we're constantly not just doing what we think we should do, or because we like pickleball, or we like basketball, or whatever, is to get that input. Yes.
Yeah, and I think the community meeting is really an opportunity for us to address, the process itself.
Sure.
I think there's been a lot of discussion on social media about, whether it's transparency, lack of trust, process, could be fixed, improved, it's broken. And not to be a repeat of what the survey is going to be. I think to stand alone and really enable us to understand what is the recommendation of how to form this longstanding committee, which is going to really help keep the ball moving forward. I think that is what I've come away with, is that our community meeting upcoming shouldn't be asking the same questions as the survey. It really needs to address something that hasn't been addressed before, which is a longstanding committee for the master plan, and how do we improve the process, trust, and all of this that's people are discussing outside of meetings that I think we need addressed for us and for whatever action plan we come up with to be successful.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think part of that is to be very clear, what you said, what the scope is of here, because something that say, listen, until you fix the bathrooms, I really don't want to hear about a community center. Fix the bathrooms first. And what I think we included is that there's 4 sections. There's one that we won't do. We will give some feedback, but is maintenance of existing facilities. Then there is enhancement of existing facilities, and there are new facilities, etc. So I think making sure people understand what the scope is, of what we all understand, right? And that could be based on community feedback. That could change, but that right now is the thought.
So I have a random question. I agree with what you're saying. 100%. Is it possible for us to address that concern upon you're saying that there are things that need to be fixed? The things that have on a ride. Is it possible to ask Crow to help us make some kind of a plan that says we're going to put these things in place and move these repairs and make these kinds of things forward, and that they back that we are not in that business. But I think the problem is There's a lack of trust. The last report wasn't bad, but it was approved already. And it went nowhere. And so that piece will be a pull on us for, but what, how is this better than the last one? What, are we gonna be 4 or 5 years from not doing this again?
Well, I think that's the point that I was making is how do we use this meeting?
Yeah,
Is it the input and the support?
we're just trying to reinforce it.
Yes.
Yeah, and Paul, if you look at the last bullet up, the last bullet on here, you know, ability to execute. Okay, because they'll say, gee, we can go through all this,
Yeah.
but if we, you know, how do we ensure?
If we say it up front, that's it.
And so you don't want to just reshuffle the chair, right? Like we mentioned before, ideas are not gonna, they're not gonna be like a newfangled idea, all of a sudden no one's ever thought of. It's the same ideas. So we gotta get kind of beyond that.
Yes,
That's
yeah,
the
just
most.
the same idea. And again, it's helping to understand scope.
Yeah.
Right, and then the details. So I think that's good. So this ties back into the second to the last bullet, which is the end, what are our deliverables when we're done as a group, right? The short-term non-maintenance items, there'll be references as the Alec and the team, you know, to copious notes as we went around to, I don't know, like 100 different places that, you know, things, you know, everything from light pictures or whatever, and that's great, but that's not our scope, but we can still highlight it, which we talked about at the last meeting. And then it's, you know, short-term, adding bathrooms, adding enhancement of facilities, and then what are our short, medium, and long-term priorities? And we may, as a group, decide, because I never liked it 1, 3, and 5 years, so something's important, I have to do it for 5 years from now. Now, we may prioritize it based upon funding and availability, and ability to execute, but to say something the community decided important, we'll wait 5 years. You know, if it's important, right, so maybe I can't do everything this year, we understand challenges, there's so much ability to manage projects that we have, you know, team, so, but something be short, long, term, et cetera. And then very importantly is, you know, because I know people are very conscious of, okay, this all sounds great, but how's that affect me and my huddle teams, right? And so, you know, all of these, right? And so we need to understand these projects can be covered by existing reserves, by existing capital plans. These may potentially be incremental. These could potentially, you know, be placed in a, you know, long-term bond, in which case it's still pay the same amount, but it would be less per year. And we need to look at all the different funding alternatives. We're not going to have a crisp. The budgets, they may not be exact for all the projects because, you know, in order for it to be exact and architect plans, et cetera, but just you would get a ballpark, right? You know, and some of them would need to be detailed. If they do a basketball court, you can get done pretty much, that could be pretty detailed. Talking about community center, you know, maybe a range, but we need to really have that and understand the flow of funds by year. Because we would build a community center, so tomorrow there's expenditures the first year or two before you even show. So I think we need to lay that out so that we can all look at that as a community and decide, okay, you know what, it all sounds great, but I only have the stomach. You know, as we compete for other financial priorities.
Well, I agree with what you're saying, but again, I don't sound keep record, but 2019 didn't have a town hall this fall. Right? And until we know what that's going to cost, either to fix it or knock it down, put a 2-story building, whatever, it's going to be very difficult for us to plan out.
So, okay, I agree, except it's not other things, because that's what I was asking on the chart. Okay, town hall's on the chart, right? Okay, so that is. Town hall is, because it's town hall, it's community center. So I agree with you, given it, it's that potential 2 to 4 million, whatever the number is. It's just something that's got to be considered, because otherwise,
Yeah, I'm not saying it shouldn't be
Yes.
a 3 to 5 year plan, so that, I'm just saying it's.
So I think we shouldn't be worrying about money right now. You need to get the plan. Do you want the 851 with 2 floors? Do you want it demolished? Do you want, it needs to be repaired, you all know that. But that's not, I think, am I wrong, Lauren? That's not what you're tasked to do. Your task to do is say, this is what we
Yeah.
want.
Our chart specifically says to take into account the financial.
Right.
I think we're your responsibility to be done.
Yeah.
So
I'm not
that's,
saying not to, but it shouldn't be the primary focus. We know 851 needs to be fixed.
Well, it's only one of the, so I think we talked about it more than.
But he keeps bringing it up, so.
Well, I'm representing.
Right. Can I speak for a second?
Yes, sure.
It's because it's based on what you're saying. It's, and you all know how I feel, mine is a priority based on needing funding. You know, what are the needs, which are the needs right now? And then go to the meeting last week with the representatives who are running for pro, right away you hear that there's a very good chance they're just gonna come in and say, this is what we want. So we can shuffle the cards any way we want, but they can take them, throw them in the air, and where they fall, that's cool.
If they fall, we're just an advisory committee.
Listen,
That's up to the board, whatever board is,
I
to
understand that, but,
accept the recommendations or not.
but that may happen way before
That's-
we even have an opportunity.
Can I speak for a second?
But
Mark,
Hands up. So right now I'm working on a recommendation of how to approach 851. So literally what an RFP should be to actually have an architectural firm develop plans and specifications for what it takes to repair the building and also do an engineering study. So we have the total costs of what it is to one, analyze the life expectancy that's still in the building for the MEP systems. And then obviously take a look at the enclosure and develop details for renovating it. With those drawings, you can get an accurate number for what it takes to really renovate the building. From what I've seen, I personally think the building can be saved, but we need to think of it possibly differently on the programming side. And we've talked about this a few times in our meetings of what is a community center. I think we've talked about breaking it down into several different components. To me, the 851 building is a civic, truly town hall that is the administrative functions of the town. So to me, it should be the meeting spaces for the board, for the committees, those type of things, and then the offices for the administrative group. And that's it. And move the classrooms, those type of things that are used by other folks, the community pieces, into another building that is the other functions that are more community related in terms of whether it's the indoor courts, meeting spaces there. And then still a third type that is more of similar to what Artisan Park has, the clubhouse there. So part of what I think we need to is define what a community center is and then figure out if that's one building or several buildings. In my opinion, it's probably several. And I think we need to look at 851 as just administrative and used for these type of meetings, for instance, that you're doing right now. So anyway, I've been asked to help with kind of defining what that scope is. I'm actually working on that right now while I'm sitting here. Apologize, I'm not there in person, but you do not want to hear me coughing in between. So anyway, we are providing, or some of us are helping with how to move that forward. So that is an issue that's taken care of outside of this process. But the definition of what a community center is probably what we're going to still be working on.
Thanks, I'm not sure that's great, Mark. Thank you. I'm not sure it's outside this process.
Well, you know what I mean. I'm trying to get that going independently. Just get it going.
Thank you. Just the other point, and I brought this up a meeting or two ago. I think our goal as a team here is to come up with a report, and if it's based on community feedback and community surveys, and it's done well. If the new board wants to say, gee, I want to disregard what the community says through this process, it's a well-defined, well-executed, well-documented process, and do something different, then they can. It just, but we give them as much data and analytics and community feedback and say, here's what we want to go do. And if they decide they want to do anything or want to do something different, they can. It just, I think it puts them in a little bit more informed decision.
So we've only got an hour, and we really need to focus on what is so I think we can keep talking, I think we've had these conversations multiple times already.
So what do you think?
So let's keep moving. One thing I'm missing, so.
Refine,
well, part
I
of
mean,
my
you're saying refine for the agenda for the.
Yeah, so like, the whole purpose of that meeting is the input, and I don't see anything around here where we are getting it.
Okay, that's, okay, so
So we have meetings over at 7:30. So tonight.
It's 6 to 8 hours.
this meeting today is 6 to 8.
Yeah.
This is 6 to 8. Okay, so the thought process, thank you, is before we get community input, is we give people no. Okay, and this would be 8 to 10 trains. Yes, okay, so that they have some idea, just like we did today, it took, we did a lot of other things, but we took it out. So
I think we need to organize like our 3 questions that we're gonna ask the
Yeah.
community during that meeting. And they're not to be the survey questions. Do you want to basketball court or not? Because the elephant in the room is a whole other ball that we need to hear from in a constructive way. So when we end up with a committee recommendation of how to be, here's an action plan and here's how you form your committee, we have that buy-in already of
Yeah.
what that looks like. The
Yeah.
little granular of I want to basketball or not is part of it, but it's not the focus.
The bigger question of what is the community, like, what are the spaces? I think you talked about that. It's like, there's really, as Mark alluded to, 3 different uses of those spaces that people, we talk about community center, what is that? And it was really that civic space. Can you have meetings without martial arts going on next door?
Yeah.
Can you have martial arts in some place that's not being disturbed by a meeting? Can you have gathering places? So it was really those like recreation spaces, civic spaces, and gathering places. And that's our definition, and what we've come up with this week here on the feedback. I think
I
those.
think that's
those are the
one,
questions
yeah,
we need to-
other questions.
Well, let's pick on that a little bit, because I think there's how do you receive information? How do you expect to receive information from a committee as such? And then what do you think about an execution plan? And then we have a couple, right? I don't think we want to get into the nitty gritty, but the definitions of, what is a community center? That's, we gotta think a lot. Because it's civic, it's gathering and it's rep. Right, at least that's how started to. That's what.
That's one of the things I want to try to write out for us is what those are. So that's one of my next tasks is to try to do that definition of what I see those 3 functions being. So maybe we can look at it that way and present it that way.
So when we had our AG, again, I just want to repeat, that was not to go and build a building. That was to collect data, which we did. And one of the things that we had at our meeting, and again, sometimes not having specific directives for people gives them the opportunity to speak freely about what they want. And one of the things, so we were putting on here town hall, meeting space, whatever. One of the biggest things that people wanted was a multi-use community center. So it's not 2 things we need, it's 3 things and 3 separate possibilities. One is a town hall, as Mark was saying, town hall, meeting space, and maybe classroom educational, but not the kickboxing. The other is recreation. Many people want the recreation where you can play basketball, or you can, have pickup games, or it could be a multi-use recreational facility, maybe even have a gym. And then the other thing, and it was huge, was a community center where you could have seniors to come and have their events. You could have town events inside. So it's not just 2 things. So I mean, and can that be done? Town hall can be town hall. Recreation center could be someplace else. A community center could be really exciting. So the possibility.
Right. That's what I was trying to say is there is 3 types. Exactly.
Well, I don't think we're disagreeing with that. Yeah, I think-
Well, I'm just saying,
So what is the, because we want.
That can be for the survey. It doesn't have to be for this unique one-on-one or, in person.
well, what do you want,
Community
what
event.
do you want?
I think that it's wrong.
Because what do you want, when you have that open forum, what is it that you want to accomplish?
I've been saying it. I want to make sure we capture the input that's different from the survey and that hasn't been captured before, because there's a lot of distress going on. There's a lot of, concerns and comments that things are not working as residents expect or want them to work. So we need to get that feedback. And the best way to get that kind of feedback is in the community event, not through the survey.
Yeah.
It's like we split up in conversational pieces, like 7 of us, 4 stations, and we have conversations. Because we're here to listen and not to, just put in information out there and have them speak for 3 minutes.
So let's,
In the conversation,
So
it's
let's-
not justification,
And I
it's
agree
not,
with that.
so let's go back to Krista's point. So let me give you my view, to answer your question you asked a few minutes. So at the community meeting, the first bit is to set up, just to get people some information so that they don't ask basic questions like when's the report gonna be done, who's working on it. Let me tell you, look, it's to set that up, okay, it's to speak to, not listen, right? And that's 30 to 45 minutes tops. Okay, so then where I'm not sure we all agree, is I'm not sure we all understand, just to forgive you, which I agree with. So, is okay, so now how do we listen to that? We could put the podium up and people come up every 3 minutes. We could break out into 7, 6, 7, whatever the number of areas are, have tables set up, and people can come talk to us and we can listen. But I think in order for that to be effective, you may want to not tell people, but give them some guidance, or this they all just gonna come and talk.
Well, let's narrow it. We want to ask, we want to get feedback.
Yes.
So I want a question, and then let's start to formulate what our questions are.
Thank
So well, very simple way, right? I think, Alexander, what you're saying is, what's working? Good, right? And we have dialogue. And we just get that open-ended feedback from the community that says, well, what's not working is, I didn't see it on Facebook, I didn't see it on that, I didn't see it here, I didn't see it there, I don't know what's going on. Okay, great. So we need a communication conduit. What is working? All right, I think that there's directionally, right, things are being looked at, we like this and like that. So I think that's a question. Other questions we need to ask? All right, I'll go again. So.
Like, formulating something that Brown's and we've been talking about, what are the different spaces, what is the type of space it's in, what's the definition of community center, more than definition, not what you're gonna get from a survey. Because a survey, we would be asking, like, here's what we heard with the different, like, these are the
Okay.
estimates.
So-
I think it's
so-
more bigger picture.
What's the definition of X, Y, Z? That's fair, right? We don't want to ask that in the survey, because then we can provide that in the survey. If this was the definition of X, Y. Which one would you?
Yeah.
When you give them a few examples. So it could be. Pieces of.
Okay, so definitions,
Yeah.
right? We can start to form that. And then what about, so what's working, what's not working, but then what about, what do you think a long-term sustainable thing looks committee, right? Is that an organized? What do we call it? What do we, resolution, right? That stands up a committee that exists as a part of the pillar of
what's
the.
that makeup? Are they
What does that look-
appointed? Are they, is it like submit your qualifications?
Would that be like the committees that
They look like.
Yeah, what is the committee? This is a question. This is a committee that doesn't exist, and it's gonna be a new board. This is the opportunity to say, we
I
would
think
like.
that's the question there that you're trying to get at is what do we look like to exist perpetuity?
Yes.
but there's still guidelines objective.
You'll make up the guidelines, I mean,
Yeah, like Chris is saying, like in the covenants resolution, there's, no less than 5, no more than 7. And there was some conversation last year about, do we want to make sure we have one person on the covenants committee from each village? So like, you could put in the resolution that the master plan committee or whatever you call it, moving forward as a representative of each village.
And that's what we want to hear, right? We want, that's what we want to drag into the community, say, what does that look like to you? Because at the end of the day, when we present this wonderful, very thoughtful, very informed report, we want people to have confidence that who is being handed over to has the authority or the influence to make things actually happen. Otherwise, we're just like, everyone is.
They don't believe that committee can move it forward. There's no reason to make a plan.
Right.
You know, like, it's just,
And that's what we.
The key to fix that.
Is-
I think we spent an hour in our first meeting saying, why is this different and how, like, how are we gonna be taken seriously? So.
The only thing that worries me is what's not working could be extended during the time.
Well, we sort of got us. So
What, I'm not saying,
rules of engagement, how you talk civilly to others, not to have like a presentation by someone else, you know.
it might be to our advantage to maybe give some facts about what the facilities is, what they're seeing, or just don't let it grow.
Well, I think that's what Joe was saying, is our.
I'm just gonna stick with that.
I just, yeah, the purpose,
You know, we're really just talking about.
yes.
That,
Well,
understanding, because even being on this committee, it's hard to sometimes understand the direction. But I don't know if they're gonna be ready for that question. Maybe the next time.
I disagree. I think it's being talked about already in social media and that's our first meeting. We say, we understand this is being discussed.
but somebody may walk up and say, and they may say, I don't understand working on. Understand definition you're talking about. It's important. But I do care about what's important to me is playgrounds
Okay.
and basketball courts. And that's okay too.
The success of this meeting is a strong facilitator who can parking lot things and who can put time limits on. We have to have.
But these are gonna be. So we,
Well, that's the format then. We have to.
because again, there's I think,
And who's signing up? And it's February 20th. It goes back to that date.
so, and you have, so I think if I'm listening, I think there's not a strong. A majority in favor of a podium and a 3-minute time. Or is it? Okay. No, it's not.
I think it's really, this meeting is
Okay.
hard to give the discussion.
I agree, okay, so that's option A is no. So now if it's this, a couple times, if it's this, two of us in a station and there's 5 stations, right? And people can rotate between, I don't, what do you think that looks like?
Can you do something with? Excuse me. When they did the workshop, not the dots, going back to, when they did the workshops with the task force, with the charter, they had input from the community. They came in and sat around tables, and it was different. There was different, couple of different meetings. So the residents came in, there was maybe 8 at a table, and they were given sticky notes. And they said, if you don't want to talk, like you just write things down, and they took those sticky notes and they worked off those sticky notes. So that's something they can.
I think that's going to be long enough because we want the people that are going to be the, silent listeners, but with good thoughts, we want to hear them.
Because when you combine all the sticky notes from all the tables,
Yeah.
you may get a lot of sticky notes for one.
I would love for us, this is in my head, right? I would love for it to be, let's say it's 2 of us at the table, 5 tables. Because, right, we have to be strong facilitators in those conversations to say, we'll talk more about that. And we're one's facilitating, one's taking notes. And then at the end of those sessions, say we have 5-minute breakouts, then we report out. Right, and then you don't have you can control the conversation of 30 minutes of whatever the topic might be. Like that format feels better because I think what we want to do is we want to draw So it's, once conversation is going down, a path, then we have to be savvy enough to say, what else, right? That's a good idea. What else, right? Where else did you see that? What else is, and we can.
And there can be those, bullet points can be those topics of the tables, if you want to
Right.
rotate. We're not taking all 3 topics on one
Yes.
table because we'll run out of time. So 1 or 2 tables will be for definitions, 1 or 2 tables will be for, what's working, what's not working.
What would be for anything you want to.
The committee
Yep.
kind of structure, and then there's always opportunities for each of those stations to have other.
Yeah, so a way to do this is exactly what you're describing. Of each table has a separate subject matter, and depending on how many people walk in, you give them a number. One way to control this is that there's 10 minutes per table and everybody just rotates. So it gives everybody that's there from the public a chance to go to each table. Now, the sticky note thing is what we actually do with some of our early exercise we do with clients and the users to pull out information is actually have them write down points on the sticky notes so that nobody has to take notes. They write them down themselves and they stick it on a poster board that says whatever the heading is, that way all of it's there, you can photograph it, it's documented. But that way, again, the people that don't want to talk can at least write down their concerns and get it stuck up on a board and it's addressed. But it is a good format, and putting a time limit on the period of time at each table for people and then allow them to rotate around the room.
I like that. Lauren, you a question, just to welcome a quick side. This all sounds great, but it's only gonna be really good if you get lots of people. Okay, and so this meeting, people weren't sure if they got to speak or not, I get to that. But there's 0.0001% of the community behind me, right? So how do we get more people here?
Yeah, we can certainly start blasting this out.
Okay.
Social media, email, do text.
Because I think that would just do, because we're gonna do this and.
Yeah, for your mindset.
Yeah, but I just think it's important, as we do this first meeting, that we get as many people.
Yeah.
As possible.
Will there be a point after the round table discussion, will there be a point where now everybody sits in the audience and you guys come up to the tables and have discussion with the community, open discussion? Will there be a point, or is it after everybody goes to the tables, that's it, everybody leaves?
Well,
That was the discussion.
that wasn't discussed.
Yeah.
We'll take around, and then I think those of us who can stay will stay all this meeting to have people want to continue to come up and say, okay, I heard all that, but I really got to tell you how come I wouldn't ask it. Okay.
So as we think about the timing, and we talk about, is it gonna be an hour and a half, is it gonna be 2 hours? I really challenge us to keep the overview to just a half hour.
Yeah.
Because the purpose of the meeting is to have those conversations and to get that feedback, and the more time we spend regurgitating information, while it is important, I don't want to dismiss that, because it is all very important. But we want to make sure that we the amount of time. So if we did something like a half hour of this, and then we talked about 10 minutes. So if there's 3 different questions, multiple stations for each question, you rotate every 10 minutes. Effectively, each person who shows up could go through once and they can leave if they want, or they would cycle through a second time and go to a different table that has that same question. So then you have the opportunities, you're thinking through, I've had this conversation, I had 2 more conversations. Oh no, I thought of more things that are really important to me that I didn't think of the first time. I want to go back and make sure that that's heard too. So by giving them multiple opportunities, it allows their, to start thinking and things to start. And so that's a 60 minutes, so it's an hour of rotation through. And you get.
And that's where those Post-it notes come in handy, is because the person that wants to come back and do that, they could at least also just write it down and stick it on the corresponding board that's with that subject. So several ways to capture
So
Is there anything of this presentation that you want blown up put on a board?
I think that's meant, like, we can,
Well,
the next
well,
3
well,
weeks.
Yeah, we're on the screen that up. Yeah.
Blown up.
Yeah, well, I actually.
Yeah.
to get it done.
Yeah.
Well, there may be 3 questions up on, well, we'll figure it
Yeah.
out. Just remind me, we decided, don't know about the date, but we decided that meeting was going to be
It'll be a town hall.
all 3.
We'll open all
all
three
of
rooms.
them. Okay.
But 2 hours, we didn't say this. We didn't say how long it'd be. You could be.
I think it's 2 hours, but
Well, I think it's scheduled 2 hours because this way people want to leave after an hour. They said they're peace to leave.
And then I was more of a summary at the end for us, because I think it'd be better for us to actually have time to digest, because we're going to be frantically taking notes and for us to come up and say, okay, this is what I heard, well, like, I would.
That is the second meeting, this is what we heard.
So can
It
I,
doesn't have to.
Jeff had a good question. Are you gonna do a table with engaging with people online and having that conversation with them?
sure.
I mean, well, and
Let's do it.
we can do a breakout in more than one, so.
There's a Zoom, there's a, whatever we do, like a Teams.
Yeah.
And that's sitting at there, and one of us is engaging with those people.
I
who
just
are
want
out of
to
town,
get
want
one
for just-
Yeah, that's good.
Yes.
A good breakouts, like team, and I can help Jose, because I've done those before, but you can do breakouts.
Yeah, we can set up the Teams meetings with different breakout rooms. We might as well just prep it with,
Yeah.
2 breakout rooms and then if we need to.
So let me just repeat what I think.
So 30-minute overview, 60-minute groups, 4 questions by 10 minutes apiece is 40 minutes. And then you got 20 minutes of those groups, so maybe there's a little, like, I guess you could do a 5-minute debrief after each, if you needed to, right? So it's a 10-minute group, 5-minute get up, change, stretch, debrief, 10-minute group, 5-minute quick debrief, change. We do that 4 times, that gets us to the hour and a half.
Yeah.
Right, and so then we don't necessarily want to put all our thoughts and digestion on the table at the end of that. So then we have 30 minutes, an hour, or are we an hour and a half?
I think we're an hour and a half, but I think we can publicize it as 2 hours, but we don't have to create 2 hours with the agenda. We can create an hour and a half. And then, because I'm guessing some people, I'll say, I did all that, but I still like to come talk to you. That's important to me. I think that's 2 hours scheduled meeting, town hall. The agenda is 30.
36 open.
36 be open. So now let's talk about, one which is project plan, and I do want to, let me, 1 or 2 people. Find this.
We're not doing president comments. Jeremy, I discussed that doing president comments.
We can do it.
That's what we discussed.
Well, actually, we discussed, but.
But isn't it our meeting?
Yes.
I need clarification on that. Isn't it our meeting?
It's your
Okay,
meeting,
but
but
we would hear from those who've taken time to this. This is our,
It's all about the agenda.
So
it's not like we're getting input, it's like you do it just,
we'll get.
if the topic is open,
Is there agenda?
discussion.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
okay, well, I end the meeting will be open. And we'll turn around and listen to people.
So quick question. I have before. Put that on the invitations, and it's out there that everybody knows what we're gonna be talking about at each thing,
Yeah.
or we just gonna make it.
Like, no, when you get to the meeting, we'll go over like the framework, how we're gonna divide up, what questions we're gonna ask.
I want to just prep you.
But if the topics.
We want the discussions to be raw and it get people's feelings without them getting consensus from all their friends first. Like I think that's part of it too, is we want to understand, we want to hear from the individuals, but at the same time, being able to digest the information ahead of time and having thoughts on what I want to say is helpful, so I don't know what the right path is there.
So that's.
Mark, so.
People parasites and 4 questions out, that we get dissertation back.
Yeah. These are all people who can't be here, and so here's some stuff that I'm bringing from them versus
So
having
that's
a
the cost.
conversation, and so that's where I get it.
I think they're gonna I mean, like, you know, that's like, I mean, they're complicated, but they're not like year or weeks to normal plans.
That's just, yeah, so in that vein, how do you want the meeting published in terms of an agenda?
We'll come up to all that. So let's just do one more important topic. Meeting, and that's the date. In the last meeting, we decided February 20th. We have published February 20th. With some comments from some people, I think we should do it at a later date. So I'd like to open it up for discussion. If somebody has a good reason why they would want to change the date sooner or later.
I think it's actually from, they want to like, this is. It's, making sure we have all of these, pieces in place, because we want to come back with the next following day.
Well, so, but now that we should.
February 20th is literally like 3 weekends away.
Yeah.
And not everyone has done a lot of work. That's the honest truth. So this is gonna require a lot of work to pull it up and to facilitate or even notate. If someone doesn't do that part, it's not gonna go well as well. So if we're putting ourselves in a corner, we have to do February 20th, then we're putting ourselves in a corner for, I don't know what external reasons we are, but
But if we,
that's my point.
but if we make it February 28th, wait 10 days later.
We can't do that.
Well, we have a meeting, we did decide the last meeting, February 28th, we're having.
We're having,
Right. But
That's the CROA annual meeting.
it's not 28th.
Yeah.
Well, I should be 29th. Okay, thank you, that's 29th. Okay,
Yeah.
but in either case, okay. If whatever work, if we decided that the presentation is going to be simple and upfront, and I volunteered to take the lead on doing the presentation upfront. And I think my view is on the presentation piece of it, 80% of it's.
facilitation takes more.
No, I didn't get the facilitation, I want the presentation. Okay, so on the facilitation piece, that's, okay, so now on the facilitation. So. It's, so,
Get a sign-in sheet.
You want to take a vote on what you want to do here? Instead of going back and forth?
well, let people speak first.
We need to hear from everybody. So this is the participation part of the agenda. We need to know because Alexandra's done work, I've done work, Joe's done work, Chris has worked, right? So who else is stepping in here to say, I will take the lead? It's uncomfortable. We don't know what we're going to do other than what we just said. And so, yes, there is work outside of this. So we need to know who's taking the lead on that piece.
On the facilitation,
Well, let's talk about facilitation. So facilitation being the MC of the meeting or at each table.
at each day,
Maybe all need to be there.
but,
Whatever we all committed. I mean, like, that's part,
Yes.
big part of building off the event.
Let's go around. Who can make it to February 20th? Should we ask?
Oh, we can make it.
yes, okay, so,
Somebody cannot make it?
okay. So everybody will be assigned a table, 2 of you, 2 per table, right? And we got,
Well, can sign it to, are you committed? Are you gonna sign your name?
What?
Not assign.
okay, Well,
It's- We were assigned being on this group.
okay, so we want them for volunteers, okay.
Well, so, okay, so let's talk through that. So we've got 4 questions. We said we're gonna have, or,
3. You're raising.
well, I had one that was just spill your guts, right?
Oh.
We need to decide what those questions are first, also.
Well, 4 of us,
You can have that.
4 of us, it's in Zoom. Is the 4.
Yeah. Mark's turn.
What's that?
Mark.
Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, all I said was, we need to decide what those questions are and kind of who wants to field those. Or talk about it with folks, or facilitate from that standpoint. So I feel like we need to define those.
Okay, let's lock that in. First question in, what's working, what's not working?
Yeah,
Which means you need to facilitate conversation that will drag that out of what's working. Tell me about, how you're communicated to, tell me about how a committee works out, right? and stir up conversation.
Okay,
So that's
So we
what,
can sign up for that.
who's gonna lead that?
What's working and what's not working, what, and communication, in your parts, in your.
Exactly. Yes,
Well, I'll take that.
okay.
thanks, Jen. Okay, and once we get through the four leaders, we're then gonna get.
So
Let's go, let's do the leaders, let's get the four leaders before we get through the science.
so the second question is, and this will be a little bit loose, and I'm not new to the screen because it's my computer on this one. What is the definition of a community center?
That's the
Right.
good question.
Hey, Mark, did you volunteer for that?
Yes, I did. 100%. Hands up. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. All right. I got it. Let's keep going.
And that's right. So the third question is, what does a sustainable master planning or asset refurbishment committee look like? How does it function? And then question.
I think you should do that.
I do too.
Oh, yeah, I volunteered.
Yeah.
So, and then second,
I don't know if you take.
Okay. here's what I'll offer. If Krista can take that one, then I'll offer the MC on the whole thing.
Okay, and I'll go with Jim.
AC, MC, what do you mean by MC?
If we've got to go through, if you're gonna do that,
I volunteer.
okay, so then I'll help Joe and just stand by me.
You and I make sure we see what.
Thank you.
Fine.
I'll go through stuff.
Oh, Mark.
Okay.
Good. Okay,
I'll help over one second.
okay.
So do we want to try and have people spur or?
Okay, well, hold on, let's just do it. Let's, the other thing is somebody has to sit,
Someone else.
Oh, the Zoom.
And will you have it set up with chairs also for people that just want, like, no, I'm saying, no,
Yeah, there's gonna be people sitting, and then there's gonna be four big
There
round tables.
needs to be a logistics team, you know,
Yes.
of people of figuring out how you're gonna lay out the space. One table, two tables, you know, whatever, what you were bringing up, Sylvia.
That's a silly point. If you have 100 people, you have 4 tables. Then if somebody now would talk to a table.
See, I don't think we need tables, but we could just have a place.
Oh, you need tables. You need tables so people can write down things.
Right, take notes and whatever. It could be like it's, you know, you could have just 2 chairs and you sit and write. Yeah, yes, but there'll be other, you know, making sure we have all the materials,
Yes,
boards, sticky notes,
so we can,
just,
these are logistics.
And it's, I already know. Yeah. I think that Joe and I were the only ones who got back to you, so.
Logistics, that's important.
Logistics could be.
Yeah. I can help with that. I've run a bunch of these things, so I can help with what that ought to look like.
Up table, round tables, yeah.
sticky notes, markers, pens, comment cards.
They want, don't talk about what the questions are, they wanna,
They can,
There's a free for all, but you cannot just rant and rave, right?
because.
Like you can't,
I'm not like.
no, but I've worked in difficult communities and I don't think, I mean, if you set the rules, making people kind
and
of.
if they want to raise it, they can let my friend say, that's
It's not custom to.
It's different.
And speed.
Yes, and that's why I think sometimes you get that, like, because it's charge of stuff instead of a conversation. You just get something.
That's got.
Guys, Scott.
Not your minute.
With too long.
Okay, all right, yeah, let's just, hold on, I'm gonna,
Yes.
no, wait, what's the last topic?
Yes.
Before we get to opening it up, so then we'll open it up for those who are patient behind us. Just, you have a hard copy of the latest project plan. It's called version 3, so we don't have any confusion. If you look at the top right, future city, different versions because.
No, it's not this one.
Yeah, that's just version 3 out. That's it. So there's no confusion this time. I don't want to allocate the sheet shot. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all of this, but there is one important thing that somebody's got to help with, and that's item 17, and it's mislabeled. It's not a good description. It's not selected company to help us develop. But what do we think that final report should be on? Because I suppose this will gather lots of data and slap it into a report. What do we think our final report should look like? Now, we can look at that. Load report. Yeah, it's loose reports. What do you think our final output should be? I think somebody right now needs to step back, look at the last report that was done and say, this is pretty good. You can use the pictures, but the content's got to change. Just somebody to step back. Just for somebody in this group to say, I'll go spend some time. You know, they can discuss.
Joe said this last time, it's not, and then go, whoever you
Let's
go.
go, good day, respectful.
Let's think of this a question, who knows somebody that's a graphic designer or like can put together something?
Because it's twofold. It's one, the last time, I don't know how much they spent on that study. I think it was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot. I know it was a lot.
It's in your research thing.
So it was a lot, okay? And now, so we have two issues. Well, we have two issues here. Well, we have two issues. We have content.
To hire a firm to put together our presentation into it.
Okay, so, but again, there's two separate issues, team. Hold on, there's two issues. There's the graphics people and the people who will put it together physically. And then there's the content, okay? And so you can go find anybody. There's not people out who do graphics, but the company last year also did the content. If we're gonna self-perform that content, it just has me worried because
You just don't want words, you want a whole.
I think there's plenty of interested and talented community members. And there was one behind you that was raising their hand earlier.
okay.
The graphic artists. I think you can find interested parties.
So that's it.
Content or package,
So Joe,
package, thanks.
on the content, yes, right, and again, my, close my eyes, what does this look like picture? Is we have that map,
Yes.
and then that map will break down each of those locations, but with that's missing is priority, right, but so maybe there's a map. Here's the definition of the scope, schedule, cost, justification as to why, and then at the end of all of that is, and here's the priority. And then you can go, so that's what I close my eyes and see.
That's right, and then there would be 30 pages. If you want to do a basketball court, here's 3 different locations you could do it at, here's what the cost is, here's what the convention, here's the timetable.
Yeah.
And okay, and here's the annual maintenance cost, et cetera. And you'd have one of those and then, but until we know what that deliverable is,
Yeah.
then I'm worried what people working, just like gather the analysis consistent.
I think right now, we're converging.
Yes.
Right.
So we can defer to that one, but that's an important thing that I don't want to wait much.
I'll put my name there. I'll continue to start to draft out and elaborate. Map scope and get some sort of format, and then we can continue it.
Okay, then just circle back because we're gonna get some people in 3 minutes. I just want to go back to the date. So February 20th, now that we have some more support and participation. Is there anybody who would like to defer the date of February 20th?
Everybody understand that President's Day is the 19th, that a lot of people are on vacation. School vacation.
Then just we get it for the elective and then you get.
No, I understand, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
If you want people to attend.
We don't want to push it tomorrow.
Yeah, so the problem is, it actually, is why let's come. That's, the next week is federal elections.
I understand what you're saying.
And then that one is March, and then we're going to be 4 months into this.
I understand.
Yeah. So, that's, okay. So
We
we
definitely have that conversation last. They call me.
It's when we have access.
And then it's, and then this, and then
February 16th is rodeo day, and that's when the schools will walk, that Friday. You're not off any day during that following,
But
the
that's
next.
a Philippine qualification.
New England. Every single state in New England.
Well, they'll be here.
So all their families that are here, that they're visiting, won't be at the meeting.
Okay.
You know what? We all have vacation schedules as well, and so let's talk about that, but I think.
Okay, so
we already established.
Okay, we're picking up 20. Unless there's any other topics, we're going to officially end this meeting.
Hold on.
Yes.
I just wanna, spoke to Jared. Because he can't be here tonight. I just want everybody to understand moving forward, that when we send emails, the master plan advisory group email, everybody's copied on that.
I disagree.
Well, that's,
What's your view?
No.
It said Alec.
if you're sending Alec an email, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of confusion in the email chain today that went
There
through.
wasn't a lot of.
No, I'm saying confusion.
There wasn't? No.
Isn't Jared our representative?
And so on.
Okay, that's what somebody.
No, so listen, there was, I'm just trying to straighten it out so there's no hiccups along the way. Transparency. The email Jim sent out this morning went to where Jared and you and Howard. The email Joe responded to copied me on it and asked Lauren if she can have everything ready for tonight. You responded about having a meeting. Lauren was never copied. So if I didn't pick up on that she wasn't part of that email chain, we would have not had any of this tonight.
Okay.
That's what I'm just talking about.
But then that's, somebody forgot to copy, I forgot to copy.
Right, so
The solution is not to be, you got Marco,
Did you-
print out the copy.
Yeah,
It just,
if we consistently copy the entire group, and Lauren, and Jared, and I, well,
people make that individual decision, and if people feel they're not being properly treated. But I think we want to, on important topics, copy everybody.
right.
But if it's you sending me a draft of the presentation.
No, I'm talking about the thorough
We
information.
took care, we took care, I forwarded it.
I understand that,
But
but
we don't see, there is way too much conversation
I
in
understand,
email.
I know that.
So,
And that's sometimes what you get lost if somebody.
because there's two, if we want to have a important conversation, let's use the Teams chats. Because we cannot,
Right, but then originally, that's what that was set up to do, have a conversation through the teach chat.
Okay.
That was the original intent, I think, at our first meeting, we said everything was gonna go, I think, I can't be 100% accurate, but I did discuss it with Jared today. And it's not that you have to say, well, Krista, will you do this? I'm not saying that you have to copy on the whole group on that, but this presentation that she forwarded today is important to the whole entire committee, I think.
Yeah.
Do you agree, Alexandra? And not everybody was copied on it. That's what I'm trying to say. This is
So I
important.
went to and said that.
I think it's different than.
Explain.
Then that one, like I forgot to copy Lauren, you should copy Lauren. I think that's fine, so we made mistakes in the copy. I just think saying I'm gonna copy everybody on everything is a solution. This meeting is now officially over, it's 7:45.
Thank you.